Thanks everyone for your patience. I'm Mark Ascension from the Law School, and I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Byki Huntjens, who's from the School of Optometry and Visual Science, who's going to talk to us about the clickers or personal response system. Because we're very short for time, I'm going to hand over straight to you, Byki, if you're happy with that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I hope I will not go over time, which always happens when I'm doing my one-woman show here. So I talk about the personal response system, which is this clicker. Maybe you all use it or not. Actually, that brings me immediately to the first question. So if you have never seen these little things before, what I would like you to do is to answer this question with either pressing a 1, a 2, or a 3. And the poll is open, as you can see, so we can press now. Sorry. Good. And so we can see the amount of responses right here. And so let's have a look how we are doing. Let's not crash. There we are. Oh, so 60% of you already using it in the lecture. So actually, maybe you can come and talk with me together about it. So about 40% of you might have heard about it, but are not using it yourself at the moment. So what I will do is I will talk very briefly about the PRS system, a little bit about the software, how you can use it, and give some examples about how you can register the clickers, how you can think about maybe presenting a certain question or designing a question for the PRS system, and also how you can link up the results to Moodle, the virtual learning environment. And then I would like to open up a discussion maybe about what do we actually learn from the PRS feedback, so we can see those statistics. That is all looks very nice, all fancy dancy, nice technology, but what do we really do with that information, and what do the students do with that? And then also, maybe if there are any, what are the disadvantages of the system? And then I would like to finish really with how you can maybe apply that to your discipline if you haven't used it yourself yet. So the personal response system, also known as clickers, as this, the software is very easy, which is kind of a virtue, because what we really want is to deliver the content of our lecture and not really have to do too much with technology like we saw today. So there's 3 components. We have the software, which you install on your computer, and then you have the receiver, which you plug in either in your laptop or your PC, and then there is the clicker, which each student has. About 120 to 150 clickers to 1 receiver. So if you have more people in the room, you can have multiple receivers plug in. Maybe that has changed, by the way, so we can discuss that maybe later. And then the last click of this on each individual clicker counts. So if you change your mind, you can just press another button, and that is the one that counts. And then the other information that the software will send to the receiver is the barcode information, which is at the back. And that's the one that we use in our department quite extensively, and that's really what I would like to talk a little bit about today. So why would we use PRS? First of all, I think it's a really nice technique to use when you are lecturing to a large group of people. When we are doing tutorials with smaller groups, it's quite easy. It's quite personal, isn't it? And you can you even know the names of the students. But if you have 150, 200 students sitting there, I only know most of the time 1 or 2 names. So then, and it's a very welcoming technique to use and get some feedback from and engage the students in these lectures. And the students love it because it's a new piece of gadgetry, and so that's quite positive. And really, the whole trying to engage the students in your lectures, really nice break, really, sometimes, and especially in these extensive lectures, maybe more than an hour, 2 hours. It's quite nice to break up the lecture for a bit. Students like the fact that it is anonymously, so they can just press, and then nobody else sees what the answer is. Now, we did, before I used the PRS, I was doing like by show of hands, but you can see some of the students that are a little bit less confident. They kind of look at what their mates are doing, and then, they might just take a guess, and they're not really 100% sure. And also, they don't know really what that information means. It's just they are giving an answer, and you know, how do I feed back to them what the percentages are and how well they've done within the range of the whole cohort. And then there is also something that, like, you can record attendance. Obviously, we can record attendance today because you can see how many responses there are. But if you use the barcode at the back, you can even do individual attendance. And that's something that I was very interested in before we started with the PRS. So just some background information that you're probably all quite familiar with, and I don't really want to go too far into this. But the student receptiveness or the interest that they have in a lecture tends to be quite high at the start and high at the end, probably in the end because they're ready to go and have a cup of coffee or something. We also know that the attention from students tends to decrease. We can discuss, obviously, or the minutes, 10 to 20 minutes approximately, it tends to come down. And then the other thing that we have to remember is that students like to focus on new information and they favor memory retention rather than actually do some thinking, right? Or some problem solving. They rather just sit back and listen. You know, they don't really want to show off too much. So you might all agree with me that the main focus of a lecture is really information transfer. So I want to tell you some information. I got that information from a book or wherever I got it from. I put it on a fancy-dancy PowerPoint. Then I print out a beautiful handout. I load that up for the students a week prior. It's all there. My lecture follows the handout. So really the question is, why do students attend, or why would they attend? Because if I just give the information, we could just as well say, spend an hour in the library and look it up, because it's all already printed out somewhere else for you. I'm just summarizing it all for you. So if we think about where do we get our information from about a subject that we really, really like or really good at, probably most of us will say, well, probably trial and error, or I went out and practiced that a lot, or I've learned it through apprenticeship, or we probably don't say, oh, I've learned all my stuff through the lectures, or all of it. That's all really I needed. And we probably say, you know, by practice and be out there in the wide world, because we like that participation. We need a little bit of apprenticeship to learn these things. And really what we're trying to do here is that we try to make a connection with previous experiences, or maybe try to make a model and then implement it at different contexts or different environments later on in life. So the other thing really that needs to be added to these things is feedback. And it's not just the feedback of me as an instructor to the students, but it's also students to students. And I think students can learn a lot from each other, not just from me. It could be that when another student explains something, the penny drops suddenly, even though I've already explained it before, but it's just a different way of saying it. And sometimes when you try to explain something and it's so crystal clear to you, it's very difficult sometimes to make students understand exactly where you're going with it. And we do know that if you have an active component within your lectures, students like the engagement, they're more motivated, and they seem to retain the information a little bit better. Of course, not all students, but the majority here. So if we are teaching a large group of students, which has massive amount of challenges, obviously, I think the one that maybe I'm struggling with the most, and maybe it's not the same for all of you, but it's really, do the students actually absorb the key learning points that I'm trying to get across? And you can test that obviously by exams, and you can also ask the students to fill in a feedback form, but these are all at the end of the year, and really that is a bit too late, right? So to get some feedback about your lectures, it would be quite handy to have an immediate, rapid, quick response from your students. And you can do that in different ways. As I said before, you can do show of hands, you can do flashcards, you can maybe even ask a direct question, but you know, I don't know how you find it, but there are very few students who like the fact that I'm pointing and asking, please explain to me, what do you think here? So maybe we should be looking at this PRS, which is anonymously. So the purpose of this little talk was about a way that I'm using the PRS systems in my lectures. And it came really from the fact that what I really wanted was a system in which I could record attendance. And it wasn't just attendance is the amount of numbers, but it was more individual attendance, because I found I'm quite good in remembering faces, and I can see who is in the lecture. Even if there are 80 students, I can recognize somebody if they come repeatedly to my lectures. But there were students coming to me asking me for additional support, and I don't even know you, I've never seen you before. So that was the first thing. And the second thing what I wanted to record attendance on labs, because practicals in optometry department are mandatory, and lateness is penalized very, very badly. So instead of actually ticking off and then having somebody admin-wise going through and then counting how many times the student was late and then deducting so many percent, blah, 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 I thought this might be a good idea. Maybe we should have these clickers. So I convinced the department to invest some money in the clickers. This was about 2 years ago, and it was only for the first year students, and I wanted each individual student to have their own clicker and register it to their name. And we did that for the first year, and then the second year we bought them also for the second and third year students. So what we do is we are giving the clicker out to the students at the start of their degree for the whole 3 years, or 4 if they even take a year out. And they pay a deposit of £30, and the clicker then costs us about £32. So I think the clickers that we use, these particular ones, they are now even maybe a little bit cheaper. And what we then do is we register the barcode to the student's name. And that is a very easy way. Steve and I, well, actually you have set it up mostly, but I kind of helped you. But it was a very easy way. What you can do is you have the student list at the start of the year, and you just copy paste it into a participant list in Turning Point software. And then you ask the student, whenever their name is on the screen, to click the button. The number immediately comes on the screen. They can check it at the back, and you move on. And if you do it in small batches of about 30 students, it didn't take us longer than 5 minutes each time. So that was very quick. And so the participant list is then done, sorted, and it's going on the shared drive, and everybody can use it whenever they want. And we have it for all the years. We manually make maybe some changes to the second and third year if there are any. Just really quickly about the lecture, how I tend to use it. So I lecture clinical skills, very practical, but I do a 1 hour lecture per week on the theory behind the practice. So there is a practical lab each week, but there is a 1 hour lecture linked to that practical session. And each week is kind of broken up in different small topics. And what I tend to do is I either interrupt my lecture or I finish it off with about 5 MCQ questions. And really what I want from that is to see if the students have understood the topic and if there are any misconceptions. Initially I started with finishing my lecture, but I changed that quite quickly, because when I realized when I finish the lecture I don't have time anymore to then do something with that information. So you need to bring it back a little bit probably. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I give the students some reading material from an electronic book that is used widely in the UK for optometrists, but I don't take my material from that. So that book describes slightly different the way that I have just done the lecture. And I also make some clinical skill videos where the students can see how it all works in practice. And then the next lecture, we start off with 5 questions approximately, putting that all together. So it's the lecture from the previous week plus the reading material, and then it becomes all about problem-solving questions, which I always tell the students, this is what you should keep in mind when you're doing the exam. These type of questions are coming back from the exam. So just really quickly, I don't really want to go into this, especially because we're running a bit late. But my lecture, I use certain graphics, which are also used in other modules. So the students recognize the graphics, which is quite nice. And I make some changes on the screen, and then in the reading material, we'll put that all together. And the graphics are slightly different, the drawings are a little bit comprehended, there is more information all at the same time. But then the week after, I present them with a new type of graphic, and I really want them to put all that information together. So it's actually a totally new question. They haven't actually read that anywhere like this, but it's really about how are you going to put all that information together. So as soon as I close the poll, you get the statistics on the screen, and there is a correct answer indicator. So the student actually does know immediately what the right answer is. So now we need to do something obviously with these stats, because as you can see, 2/3 doesn't understand this, or at least has got the answer wrong. And what I do is I discuss the results based on Eric Mazur papers. He has written lots of papers. He's like the guru of PRS, and also Dutch, by the way, so you know. What happens is that if very few people got the correct answer, what I try to do is I try to make the classroom explain to me per answer why it's incorrect or why it is correct. And because we do it as a group, there's always someone that shouts out, really. If about between 30 and 70% of the people chooses the correct answer, then what I would try to do is try to convince somebody to explain it to us, or I'll go a few steps back and I'll make the students finish my sentences, just so I can see where in the process they are making possibly a mistake. And then if more than 70% has the correct answer, we move on. Obviously there's an applause, and there's some graphics, but I do encourage the students that do not have the correct answer to look it up, or come and see me afterwards. So that's how I tend to use it throughout. Alternatively, and this is actually a very interesting way, and don't go too far into it, but you can go online actually and watch Eric Mazur talk about this. What he does is that, I really want to talk about this one, when 30 to 70% chooses the answers correctly, he doesn't use the correct answer indicator, so nobody actually knows what the answer is. And he tells the students to find somebody in their neighborhood that has a different answer, and then explain to each other, make a case for why do you think that this answer is correct, and then the other person. And then he does the same question again and see if actually suddenly more than 70% is convinced that maybe answer 1 or answer 2 was correct. So this is a very interesting way, and I haven't used it like this, but I'm very keen on start using that next year. So maybe next year we can do another presentation about that. This is really quickly for people that are interested on what to then do. What you can do is you can save the session. Once you're completely done, students are already leaving, you can save the session with a button that is just on the top of the software, and you save it as a CSV file, just this comma-separated Excel file. And what you get is that you get the clicker numbers, and then the names, and then the groups that they are in, and their email addresses, and then the marks that they got for these questions. And then what you can do is you can just, with a click of a button, upload it onto Moodle by importing a CSV file, and you map the students' emails from that CSV file to the emails that are linked in Moodle, and that's it. So the students immediately see the percentage of each topic, each lecture that they've done. So for us, that looks something like this. The students only see their own marks per lecture, so I have 21 lectures, so I have 21 marks. Doesn't count for anything, but it's just for them to see. So they only see their own marks, but they also see the ranking. So ranking compared to the rest of the cohort. And as you can see from this, this student had no clue what they were doing, or probably weren't there. They didn't attend. And this student did understand my lecture about the slit lamp, or at least understood the question that I asked about it, but has a little bit more trouble with the ophthalmoscopy lectures. And really what I want from this is that the student can look up and find out which area needs a little bit more information prior to the exam. They can come back to me, and also because I have that information, I can then direct them to the right support that they need to understand just this section. This student probably I'll say, you know, see you next year. No, I'm joking. I will say, you know, attend my lectures, please. From the student's point of view, it's an easy thing, and they don't mind actually the £30 deposit. They're quite happy with that. At least we haven't got any complaints about that. They're quite excited, to be honest. They like it. I think about 70 to 80% of the students actually use it. From the ones that attend, they use. So that's quite high, I think. There's even a competition going on. They know from the start that, you know, the 3 to 5, depends a little bit, best students, I have a cohort of 150, so 3 to 5, and I got some prizes for them, and they know that from the start. I didn't tell them, though, what it was. So I also told them it could be just a cup of coffee, but no, they're all quite competitive. And so, yeah, so that's quite nice. And as I said to you before, the topic that needs more attention prior to the exam is really what they take from this. For us, it's really gaining the information about the level of understanding or the misconceptions in the study. And what happened in my case is that on several occasions, I changed the direction of my lecture. I realized that in the previous cohort, I needed much more information on a certain topic. And then when I tested it with the clickers this year, actually I realized, no, we can move on quicker. I can add some other things to it, some interesting things. And yeah, I really, really like this. This was something that I especially was quite impressed about. And obviously it probably changes also per cohort. It also enhances the support as we can offer. As I said to you before, when the students come to me, I can look up where they're going wrong, and we can go over the questions again, and I can give them extra reading material if needed. Some of the disadvantages, the main one for me was attendance, because what I realized is that what could happen is that the battery is suddenly gone, and I can't really take attendance and deduct marks for somebody who is actually there, but I didn't register it, or if they've forgotten the clicker, or even, and this is even worse, when they've given their mate a clicker. So all 28 are there, but I actually have only 15 people in front of me. That's probably the main, yeah. This is really a question. There might be some students who are doing quite well with the traditional way of lecturing, so they might feel a little bit discomfort with this whole new system where they're quite happy to just listen, take notes, study it, and get good marks in their written exam. So it's not for everybody. I think one of the key points here is communication. I think it is very important for us as instructors to understand why we're using the PRS. I don't think we should use it just as a really cool gadget with some nice graphics and then not really doing anything with the statistics that come up. Otherwise, you know, we can just put also a nice movie on or something else. You really need to do something with the information. And for the students, they need to understand what they can take from it. So I think that's a really important point. The other thing, though, is, you might have the feeling that you have less time to spend on delivering the content. And I think that might actually turn into something positive, because I do think that maybe you have a little bit less time on your content. But at the same time, you get so much feedback about your content that you might realize that actually you don't need those 50 minutes to spend on that particular content. And I think, so actually this might turn into something positive, not necessarily negative. The only thing then left really is the increased workload. You might need to go on a course, or you might feel you need to go on a course, and then we obviously have technical malfunctions, not just also with the clickers, but you can also have these applications on your phone, and then obviously if the Wi-Fi is suddenly very low, it's not working, then you're not registering. So yeah, I do agree that this sometimes is a problem. In relationship to other disciplines, you might work in a discipline where you think, well, actually, for me, the answer to a question is not standard. It's not that everybody needs to agree on the number 15 or the color blue. And so how am I going to use this in my discipline? And I think you actually don't need agreement every time. What you can do is you can kind of stimulate a discussion amongst the group where there is no answer, no correct answer. You can have like case studies, for instance in ethics or medical treatments. You can discuss about, you know, a piece of art or anything else really that doesn't necessarily need agreement. And when I had a look at the literature just from the last 9-10 years, I mean, it's, you know, you see these clickers being used in all sorts of disciplines. You know, we have nursing, medicine, economics, physics, and there's even a paper down here from 2004 that used it and compared it among 8 different departments within the institution. So I think it is really, we can use it for all the, yeah, we're actually done. I managed to, I really raced through, didn't I? I have another question for you, but let's maybe you want to open up a discussion now or have any questions for me. Yes.
Not really a question. I'm the Moodle technical manager.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're planning on Moodle 2 for September 2013, and just to let you know that we're planning on a tighter integration between PRS Moodle, so you'll be able to pull down a class list.
Yes.
You'll be able to perhaps integrate it with a Moodle quiz.
Yes.
You aren't tied to PowerPoint, of course, because you can use the turning point anywhere and stuff. So we are working to make this easier to use, basically.
Yeah, I was actually a bit surprised because when you save the data from Turning Point, it actually gives you the option to pick the format for Moodle. So every time I do it, but I can't actually link it.
We don't have, we've not installed the bit we need inside Moodle.
Okay.
But we are working on that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, Fazana Latif helped in the School of Health Science. She helped me a lot just to make sure that I got all the emails correct and can subtract that, you know, take that away from this. But in a way now it works for me because I know what I'm supposed to be doing. But it's really quick. It was only 2 steps. But I'm glad to hear that we can integrate it from, yeah.
I haven't got a question, but I used PRS as for a completely different discipline, languages, teaching languages for years. And I didn't used to ask an accurate question, you know, an accurate answer to a question. It was more, what's your opinion about, to start with discussions. So I was just using them for that.
Yes, I think, well, Steve and I both teach in first year, and when I ask for opinions in first year, it tends to go very quiet. And I do like that actually in tutorials in third year, second year students, but
and that would actually start. You know, and usually a question that's a bit controversial would work better.
Very good, yes,
so
yes. Yeah, definitely.
Fun going on as well.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Well, I had just one question for you, really. Would you, oh, it's nicely closed. Oh, there we are. It's open. Would you maybe start using it now, or will you use it now? This is, maybe the people that are not using it at the moment. Or maybe the ones that were using it are thinking, actually, you know what? I'm going to stop. Good. It probably takes a little bit of time because my you go, hey! Excellent! Well, that's really good. Yeah, I think I have to say, Turning Point, the website, is really good. They have like all these tutorials. You do need a little bit of time to actually sit and watch. But within the department, because because Steve and I are using it quite a lot, and I get quite a few questions on Moodle or PRS, and I've made some really easy follow this kind of, you know, steps if you want to do this particular thing, and not that you have to look it up in a handbook. So if anybody really has any questions or want to copy what we do, please, you know, email me or let me know if I can help in any way.